We have multiple huge Leafs updates to go over today ahead of the big series against the Panthers. We have multiple updates surrounding that. We're going to break that down as well as discuss some interesting comments from Leafs players and one particular player that is not only a lot better than Leafs fans thought, but is going to be an X factor going forward for this team. We're going to break down exactly who that is, as well as a bunch of other things in this episode. But before you get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. About 71% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed. So if you're enjoying the daily Leafs content in the middle of what's hopefully going to be a long playoff run, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And we will be live following the first game of the playoffs, which we now know, at least have a very strong idea of when that's going to be. And we will start with that. You can see this here. The expectation seems to be that game one of the Leafs-Panthers series will go on Monday night in Toronto, and Chris Johnson reported that this afternoon. It is not 100% confirmed, but all but confirmed. So Darius, this is actually pretty big. If you saw our video earlier this morning, there were some rumblings about, because Pierre LeBrun came out yesterday, it could be Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, up in the air depending on the Western Conference. It still is depending on that a little bit, but with a game 7 between the Stars and the Avalanche, that's obviously going to be going Saturday. It seems that either Sunday or Monday, with most likely Monday, is going to be game 1 of the second round. And this is great for the Leafs. They get a few days of rest. Most importantly, Anthony Stolarz gets a bit of a breather following starting, like I mentioned earlier in today's video, the most games of his NHL career in a row.
Yeah, if you watched our video this morning, we know now it's not going to be Saturday, which is a great thing for the Leafs because that is one day of rest, and they would have been going at it again tomorrow, which would not have been ideal. So shout out to the Colorado Avalanche for forcing a game 7 because there was a world where this would have started on Saturday. But the earliest I think at this point it's going to start is on Sunday, but I think the reason that they're pushing it to Monday is because there could be a game 7 still between the St. Louis Blues and the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday, and I don't think that they want a game 7 and a game 1 clashing because that makes no sense for the league. So it really depends on, I think, the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues tonight, whatever happens in that game. If Winnipeg wraps it up, I think there is a world we see it on Sunday. And the reason that I do think that they're pushing for the Sunday start is because they can have it Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, because now if it starts on Monday, they're going to do Monday, Wednesday, then there's going to be a weird gap because they want to get that game on the Saturday. I know the league wants the gap or a game on a Saturday. So there's going to be a weird 2-day gap in between games 2 and 3 where you should have a gap later on in the series. So I think that's the reason they're pushing for Sunday, but it's looking like Monday, at least from Chris Johnston. But again, we have to wait and see what happens with the rest of the games. But it's not going to be Saturday, which is a great thing for the Leafs.
Yeah, very, very good. Stolarz gets rest. Maybe they'll practice tomorrow. You would assume either tomorrow or Sunday they're going to get a practice in, depending. I would assume we're going to hear something about lines and things like that tomorrow as well. Today seems to be majority an off day as it pertains. Of course, they're coming off a big series win. However, there are still some quotes flowing out. I want to dive into a couple of different things. And one player we're going to dive into here is Scott Laughton a little bit. You can see this here. I'm very grateful for you guys. Let's keep this thing going. Obviously, not going to say the expletives there, but Scott Laughton is a guy that, and again, it seems this team is pretty locked in right now. And to hear this quote, it fires a lot of fans up. And this is, of course, after receiving the player of the game puck. He deserved it. I mentioned it in the stream yesterday. Like, he played a fantastic game. He blocked, blocked the shot that ultimately led to William Nylander's game-winning empty net goal. He was one of the best players, obviously, mostly in the losses, but in general, one of the best players in the series. And against a Florida Panthers team, who we'll dive into in a little bit here, they're going to be physical. They play a very tough style of hockey. This is the reason that Brad Treliving went out and got him, was, in my eyes, for a matchup like the Florida Panthers. And he's going to be absolutely critical for this team. And I think a lot of fans of, looking around of the Panthers and even just other teams as well, but especially the Panthers, I don't think they're necessarily paying as much attention to Scott Laughton as they should, because he's been generating a lot of scoring chances. Most importantly, he's been elite just all around, and especially defensively, blocking shots and being a part of that fourth line, the gritty line.
Yeah, dare I say he's been sneaky good in the playoffs so far. He's been generating chances, especially the second half of the series. I thought he was generating chances, and he's playing on the fourth line, but he's not a stereotypical fourth liner. Like, this guy can play as high as a second line on most teams, right? And he was with the Philadelphia Flyers. So he can take on matchups and all that stuff. And he was on the ice to make that block that everyone's talking about, and is a great moment that we can look back on. Obviously, Nylander put it away in the empty net. To make that block, he was on the ice. They trusted him in the last minute of the game to be on the ice. Craig Berube actively put him out there to kill that off, to shut that down. So he's a great two-way player. And I think that there's still another level that's going to be unlocked to his game because he's still, I think, in front of our eyes right now, still getting comfortable with the system, with the team, living here. You could see if you watch the clip from that quote, he was getting emotional at the end because he's just like, you go from not, even getting a sniff at the playoffs with the Flyers to now being with the Leafs, and he's signed to next year as well. And they want to go on a run. He's making big plays. So he's been great in his role on the fourth line. It's just where he fits in on the team, but he's doing a great job. He understands his role. And I think, he's going to be a guy that we were talking about Steven Lorentz all year. He's going to be that guy that's going to get a weird goal, like off his shin pad or something, but just because he's driving the net, that's going to be a big goal in these playoffs. And I feel like he's going to get one of those, but nonetheless, made a big play last night to wrap up the series. So he's going to be an X factor, I think, going forward as well.
Yeah, we'll dive into some interesting things. I'm diving into this as well here. Willie and Austin show. They're undefeated in the postseason when they both score. So despite all the ghosts, all these different things, if you get goals from, which makes sense, if you get goals from both Matthews and William Nylander, you're in very good shape. And that's why those two guys are going to be crucial as well. Of course, the fourth line, all those things. Third line as well. Depending on what they do with Bobby McMahon, which of course we'll have videos on, there's a lot of discussion points here. But speaking of that line, second and third line, Max Pacioretty, despite a lot of fans saying that he had a bad game up until the game-winning goal, I mean, he had 7 hits, 2 shots, 1 block. He was the primary assist on the 2-0 goal and had a game winner. Yes, he was a little bit slow. Yes, he had a couple of turnovers. He was great. He was, I think, second on the impact score chart in yesterday's game, or top 3, top 5. He has been very solid. Now, the question is, and I'll ask you, and we'll obviously have updates on it, does Max Pacioretty, do they change up the lines? They're going to keep Patches in. I don't think it's a good spot for Robo anyway against the Florida Panthers. I don't think you can necessarily have him in there. However, Max Pacioretty and Bobby McMahon, that's a big question now. I think they're probably going to keep Pontus in the third line, or maybe they'll rock it back. We might see Bobby McMahon on the second line like we did for the second half and towards the tail end of yesterday's second and third period.
I think the reason a lot of people and even myself were calling for Nick Robertson to come back in the lineup was because of the speed issue, right? The game 3 that he came in, Max Pacioretty, this is, he did look good. He was generating chances. He was throwing the body around. But then game 4 and 5, he didn't look that good. So then coming into game 6, you're like, maybe you go back to Nick Robertson. That was kind of the thought process. But I thought Max Pacioretty, despite obviously scoring the series winning goal, had a good game last night. And he hits to hurt. He's not just hitting to, separate the body from the puck, which is obviously what a hit is, but he's hitting to hurt, right? So I think that, that's going to be a big factor going into a series against the Florida Panthers because they do the exact same thing, right? And I think with Nick Robertson, like, I'm not saying he's going to get eaten alive in a series like this. We could see him coming to the series. You don't know what's going to happen. Injuries might happen. I think this is going to be a lot tougher of a series and more hatred, that's for sure, because Marchand's in the mix, Carlo, former teammates. So there's going to be a lot of that going on. And then obviously you have Sam Bennett and all that stuff as well. But I think you keep him in the lineup until it doesn't work at this point because it has been working, right? With him in the lineup, they have 2 wins. Yes, they have 2 losses as well. But I think he's been playing actually very well overall. If you look at the overall series and the games that he played in it.
+2 as well, which again, plus minuses and everything, but it's pretty important, especially for a player like him. A couple other things. Anthony Stolarz in the center of second goal. He basically talked about how he was eager on the poke check, so you live and you learn, and that's the life of a goaltender. You flush it out of your mind because the next shot's coming, and it's more important one than the last one that just went in. Shout out to him. He held it down when the Senators had an empty net. It wasn't a great goal to let in. You could also blame Morgan Riley a little bit, losing his man. Like, there's a bunch of different things you could go. Chris Tanev was a step late, which allowed David Perron to actually get the goal. So no matter who you want to put blame on, it happens. You love to see him taking accountability. And as you look now at, the projected lines in theory for Monday night's game, again, has Patch in the second line. They might change that around. I'm very confident in this team. The blue line remains the same. And as you start to look at some of the other things here, I want to get your thoughts on this really quick. These are, of course, the Florida forwards, and the lines aren't locked in or anything like that. But the big storyline coming into this, and we'll have videos on it, is going to be how does the core 4 react to, and the core 5 now, if you want to talk, depending on who you want to add in, Nas, the shutdown line of, course, Carter Verhaeghe, Alexander Barakov, and Sam Reinhart. Like, that's going to be the line that is ultimately, like, their best player is Matthew Tkachuk, but he's on the second line. You have Sam Bennett. They have a lot of shutdown players here. How are the boys going to answer to that line is the big question, because they haven't played yet this postseason a shutdown line like that.
Absolutely. I think it's got to be first line against first line. It's just got to cancel each other out. And then I think the second line has to be, it's very interesting. I think I would put McMahon up if he continues to play the way that he did in game 6. He actually looked much more effective, and he's just waiting to break out. I like, he just has to score a goal one of these games. Like, he has to get going here, right? There's no way they go the whole playoffs without him scoring. That would be insane. So hopefully he gets going too. And then I think the third line too. The one thing about this series, I think that we didn't see in the last series against Ottawa. First of all, more hatred. I think there's going to be more physicality. It's going to be a tougher series, but more line matching. I feel like Craig Berube did not take line matching as seriously in the last series, which is fine, right? Because I think the Leafs on paper had a better team anyway and would probably outmatch the Senators. But you could see Travis Green like scrambling and pulling guys off to match line, stuff like that. I feel like the Leafs weren't doing too much of that. I feel like there's going to be a lot of that in this series. So, I think each line is going to have to match up against each other and just see how it goes. And some lines are going to cancel each other out. So it's going to be very interesting. The one thing I will say, while Florida's fourth line has been effective, I feel like the Leafs has been really effective. So that's going to be something that they're going to have to use to their advantage. And then the third line as well, who's playing on it. Maybe you do put Patchetti on that third line. He goes against Marchand. I think that could be something interesting to kind of neutralize him, right? So there's going to be a lot of gamesmanship, a lot of line matching, I feel like, in this series, a lot more tactical stuff that we didn't see against Ottawa.
Yeah, I could see a world, like you mentioned, McMahon in the second line, Patchetti in the third line with Marchand, but they're a deep team. Leafs are a deep team, and Scott Laughton's going to be an X factor as well. Quickly before I wrapped up, well, a few other quotes here. William Nylander on the impact of Scott Laughton. I mean, just the way I think that entire line has been playing unbelievable. And we covered this a little bit earlier, but it kind of just goes to show how good he's been. He's really taken pride in playing both sides of the puck. He's been hunting, doing the defensive stuff, and playing that line. And I don't know, everyone seems they're gelling well. And despite the games that they lost, you have the team kind of coming together here. And you can see here from William Nylander, like I mentioned, it's the Scott Laughton quote. And you can see at the end there, he's an unbelievable guy in the room too, which is have him for next year, which is of course fantastic. And Craig Berube and the series win. That's laying it on the line. That's how you win a series right there. Makes you want to run through a wall. Not that Sheldon Keefe didn't do this, but I think that the way that Berube speaks, and he's won a cup before with the Blues, I think the team is just buying in more and really have taken to his approach. And I think that's why it's working a lot better. Do what you do. You're good players. Go do what you've done all year. That's his message ahead of the Florida series. So any thoughts on this, Darius, before I wrap up? It's firing me up here, and I'm just ready for hockey to start. But I will enjoy a stress-free weekend of watching other teams around the league.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be a nice weekend to not have to stress about the Leafs and just watch some hockey. But yeah, Craig Berube, it's the way he delivers the message. He's been there. He's done that. So the players, respect him. And I'm not saying that the players didn't respect Sheldon Keefe, but it's a lot of the same messaging, but it's just, coming from a different place and in a different way and with different experience. So it's just the way that he says it, even when he talks in press conferences, like it gets the fans fired up. Like they're ready to go here. They won this series and they're very businesslike. If you compare like 2023 when they won, I know they broke a 20-year curse and all of this, but if you compare that celebration to last night's, it was very Kawhi Leonard-esque when he won with the Raptors, where it was like, all right, head down, get to work, next series. So I like this mentality from the Leafs.
Yeah, let's know what your thoughts are. Lots of videos coming. It's an exciting weekend ahead, and leave your series predictions down below. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.